Welcome to this video where we're going to take a look at my rollable tables inside of Roll20. I posted a question on the forum and I received several questions as to how I created them in a variety of aspects, both from a visual perspective and also from a functionality perspective. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at what I'm referring to. Inside of my journal, I basically have all the rollable tables from the Dungeon Master's Guide, player handbooks, and so forth. The reason I've created this is because Roll20 does not have any form of purchasable content from the Dungeon Master's Guide or the player's handbook. This is a bit of a sore point for me. If they had it and I could buy it, I totally would give them my money, but they don't. So I resorted to adding these in the software myself. So what are these? These are basically handouts that I've created inside of the software, and they're anywhere from the very simple, such as the 10 gold piece gemstones, to the very complex. In the case of Magic Item Table B, has got a lot of items on it. Obviously, there are some that are more complicated than that. So though they look nice and they list all the items, I think the thing that people were really asking for is they noticed, one, all of the items were linked in here, and two, they saw hyperlinks for rolling at the top. So first of all, let's take a look at the really simple thing. I can, right from my tables, make my D12 or my D100 roll in this case. And at its simplest form, this is probably the easiest way to use this. I can go, okay, I rolled a 4, they get an agate. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. And in this case, a 37, Potion of Animal Friendship. What I can also do is I can click on this, and this will open up my handout that I've created for literally every single item for every book I own. This includes the Dungeon Master's Guide, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. I think there's a few more in there somewhere. I've created handouts for all these items. Now, a lot of these items, you'll notice I have a hyperlink here, and it will go to the compendium built into the game. The reason I'm not using that as default is the compendium is SRD content, the standard rules, design, or definition, or whatever the heck it means. It contains like 75% of the actual content in the game. So I find it not extremely valuable. I want my players to have a consistent experience, and if I can't give them something out of the compendium, again, I'm complaining that the compendium, I can't buy a Dungeon Master's Guide or a player's handbook for it. Absolutely, I'll champion that until the day that that's put into Roll20. Okay, so anyway, so that's the first step. If you want to go down this path, it can get really time consuming. I find time during go-to meetings for my job and while watching television at night. I have every single item in here. If there's images available somewhere online for it, I find it. One of the other things I've done is I've gone through and I've created links wherever they're relevant. So in this case, you can see that the Horn of Blasting, on a failed saving throw, the creature takes 5d6 thunder damage. When I click that, it rolls 22 thunder damage. Oh, one of the things to mention, you will notice that in some cases I'm whispering to myself, the GM, and in some cases these are public rolls. I made a conscious decision as to what things were going to be public rolls and what things weren't going to be public rolls. Also, in the cases of some spells here, I'll link to the spell inside of the compendium should the spell exist. Again, this is a problem for spells that are inside of the Dungeon Master's Guide and not in the compendium. Again, bitter sore point for me right there. Consistency is important to me. Anyway, so let's take a look at how I created these tables, and then how I did, and then let's talk about the thing that I'm probably really being asked for, or people didn't realize from my images. That's the fact that when I click on the header above the descriptive names, when I click on that, you'll notice I don't even care what the D12 roll was. It just tells me I rolled a bandit agate. Also, you'll notice when I do this on Magic Item Table B and it links to a handout, I can click on that handout. It will open. In this case, I happen to get a Potion of Greater Healing. I can then show this to my players, give this to them immediately. That is a value of handouts over the compendium. They don't have, there's no like easy way to always link back to the compendium from the character sheet. So let me mute my phone so that doesn't happen again. These also, again, have relevant pieces of information in them. If somebody goes to heal with a potion of superior healing, they can click on it, and it says potion of superior healing, heals for 28 in this case. It does the roll. So all of these are using the exact same thing. I'm going to start with the basics. I'm going to start with how did I create my tables? And then we'll move on from there. We'll talk about how did I create it to roll a d12. Then I'll show how did it roll all of this text, and then finally, how did it roll linkable? So hopefully that makes sense. I'll try to go through the description and update this the timestamps the best I can. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our Dungeon Master's Guide, and we're going to open to whatever page this stuff is on. I never want to have to open this book again. I'm happy to have paid for it and owned it, but now that it's in here, I really would prefer that I just do everything inside of Roll20. So we're going to start by mimicking the 10 gold piece gemstones table, and we're going to do that by adding a new handout. Now I right click on the folder where I want it to go so it appears there, and then I can click on this and edit it. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm simply going to call this my gems because I don't need another 10 gold piece gemstone table. The first thing I want to do is I want to add the table to my description and notes. You could add this to the GM notes. This all depends on how you share information with your players. This is not a handout that they will ever see. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to choose to insert table. There are 12 items in that table. You'll notice I am entering 12 rows, not 13. I am not creating a row for the header, and there are only 2 columns. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm then going to go through and I'm going to add a header to my table. The reason I add a header, and a lot of the content you'll purchase from Wizards does not do this. It looks very poor without this, is it formats the header differently from the rest of the table. Which, if you've ever done anything inside of Microsoft Excel or anything, you kind of like your headers to look different, whether it's bold text, centered text, whatever it is. It always does look a little bit different. Excuse me. So the next thing I did is I added all the information, and I literally did this line for line. Now I could go through and I could type this all for you. That's going to be extremely boring. The one thing I'm going to show you here, and I'm using the up and down keys to cycle through these just so you know. And that's because I find left and right, notice here, it doesn't want to always jump right away. It takes 2 lefts to go back. The down arrows just jump from one to the other. The other thing I did do, and the only reason I added a couple things here, is again, consistency and a clean look. I went through and I literally took the time and I centered all my text. Most people might not be this OCD, but man, I'm going to do this once. I want it to look good the 100 times I'm going to open this. So I'm going to take the time and I'm going to go through and I'm going to center the text, format it, and make it look nice. So that's how I go through and I create my table. Now, there's absolutely no reason for me to do all that. So let's do this. Let's copy all this and let's paste this here and let's get to our blank table. So you get our table done. Now I want to add some automation to it. I want to add the ability to roll the D12, the really basic thing. Let's recap what that does. When I click this, it does a couple of things. It rolls a D12 and it whispers it to me, the GM, because I don't want my players to see what I've rolled or what table I've rolled on, for example. So I have it whisper me. So we're going to start with that, and then I'll show you how we get it to do this. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually, and you can do this with a free account. Some of the stuff I'm going to show you later on requires a pro account with an API mod that I'm using. All this stuff I'm doing right here is completely free. So let's go ahead and we're going to highlight the text that I want to click on, and I'm going to choose to insert a link. And what we're going to do is we're going to do something, there's a magical term for this in Roll20. I think it's called a macro button or something like this. I don't know what it is. But it actually requires entering some very specific text. I will try to enter this into the YouTube description. The problem is this is text that is HTML and immediately gets replaced by a carriage return. A carriage return is basically the same thing as hitting enter. And basically what we're going to do, and you can see in my previous comments here, I've done this a whole bunch. We're going to go exclamation point ampersand, pound sign, 13, and the character that is always missed when I do this, semicolon. Don't forget the semicolon. All right, so once we do that, that's basically the same thing as hitting the enter key as far as I know. I just know this works. I've had a lot of help from the forums from people. And now we're going to type in the command. I want to whisper to myself. So now I could just do a GM roll. I could do /gr. I believe that's a GM roll. You can do GM roll. And that's going to give you a rollable dice output. You'll notice my dice looks a little bit cleaner. I don't see the dice or anything like that. And the reason is what I'm doing is I'm doing whisper GM. And if you enclose anything in brackets, instead of giving you the whole calculation of how it got to the final result, it'll just give you the final result. So in this case, 1d12, and then I'm going to close that with 2 closed brackets right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit insert, and then I'm going to test it. Now I could save this to test it, but you can actually, by clicking on the hyperlink, you'll see here that you get a link to it. Now notice it does not look the same as what we actually typed in. Notice that the ampersand, the pound sign, and the 13 semicolon is gone. The exclamation point is the only thing that stays there. So when I do that, that's how I go ahead and I whisper myself a roll. When I hover over it, I can still see the results of that roll. 1d12 equaled 3. And you can actually, you'll notice that when I click on things like this, that actually rolled 10d4 plus 20. It just gave me my final result. Because keep in mind, if you did something like this, 10d4 plus 20, it's going to roll all the dice out into the chat window. I really don't care about all those individual numbers. All I care about is the final number. And that's ultimately why you put the square brackets around it. Okay, so now let's take a look at how we do the descriptive text. This requires creating something inside. I'm going to save these changes. So this is already working. I can go through here and I can click on this. These tables are interesting in that how they compress and they lengthen. And I can roll this all day long, and as long as I'm in this table, I know what I'm rolling for. That's great. Again, players don't need to see this information. If you wanted your players to see this, you could literally just in there, after you do the exclamation point, ampersand, pound sign, whatever all that stuff is. I always have to go back and remember that. You could actually do, instead of whisper, you could actually just type the open brackets, 1d12, closed brackets, and it'll basically just give you that numerical output of the result of the roll. So you have full control over that. And that's basically what I've done here. You can see that when I click on that potion of healing, I have text where I didn't do a whisper. I actually typed the words. Potion of healing heals for 2d4 plus 2. Okay. So the next thing we want to do, we want to get this text. Now, what I did is I did not want to write a whole bunch of if-then statements here or conditional statements. I don't even know if you can do that with Free or Pro. What I did is I used something called a rollable table. And you'll see down here I have a bazillion of them. What we're going to do is we're going to choose to add a new rollable table. These are not sortable or reorganizable. So here's a pro tip. Do them in the order you want them to appear here because they are not easy to navigate when you have this many of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a name. I'm going to call this My Gems. And then what you're going to do is you're going to enter an item. And in this case, we're going to just totally copy and paste this text because I don't want to type all that in. And you'll notice sometimes here, you'll actually capture the cell before it. Make sure you clean that up. The next thing you'll notice is the weight of the value. So in the case of this, every single number, 1 through 12, is worth the same value. So it's worth 1. Do not enter the number here. If you enter the number 12 for turquoise, what it does is it says, that has 12 times more likely of an opportunity to be rolled than azurite does. We want this number to represent the probability of it being rolled. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. we're going to add the next item here. In this case, it's going to be the bandit-agate, which again, I know I pronounced wrong. agate, whatever that is. Looks like that in that case, I missed the first character. And again, this is worth the same weight as azurite is. 1. Each roll of the die, this has a 1 in whatever, however many items are going to be on here, chance of being rolled. The other thing that I do is I uncheck players can roll from table. I don't even want them to know these tables exist. I want them to enjoy the sausage. I don't want them to know how it's made. That ruins their experience. Okay, so I would call this my gems. The reality is I already have a rollable table here called 10 GP gemstones. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete that rollable table, and we're going to scroll up to the top here. And this is what it looks like when it's all finished. Every single, and you'll notice I use slightly different text here. I didn't just type A in the name of the gemstone. I wrote an A, depending on if it's a consonant or a vowel after it. Depending in your language, if you don't speak English, however you pronounce this, you can choose how this is. The reality is I could have left that out and I could have typed that into what I'm going to do next. So now I want to show how to roll on this rollable table, because that's ultimately what we want to get to next. Now my chat's getting a little long. Let's go ahead and clear that out. So a rollable table works a couple different ways. So the first thing you could do is you could scroll through this massive list and try to find it, and you could click roll and it'll roll on your rollable table. And you can see here that it looks absolutely gorgeous. I mean, horrible. Rolling 1T bracket 10-GP gemstones parentheses a malachite equals 0. So let's take a look at this first. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to edit my gems, and we're going to add this into there. So just like we did with the D12, we're going to select the text. We're going to choose to insert a link, and we are going to start with the exact same thing we did before. We're going to exclamation point, ampersand, pound sign, 13, and don't forget, semicolon. The next thing we're going to do, again, I want to whisper the GM. Again, if you don't want to whisper the GM, just leave this part off. Now, to roll on a rollable table takes another very odd way of entering this text. You start with 2 brackets, and the reason I'm doing 2 brackets here is because I believe I just want the output. Yeah, I just want it to output the text. Remember how that looks horrible right there? I believe if I do this, I type 1T for 1 time, and then a bracket to specify which rollable table we're going to roll on. So let's go ahead, and the name of that table is 10-GP-gemstones. I probably don't recommend putting dashes in and type like you would if you were a programmer and just use camel casing. And then we need to close all of our brackets. Not just the 2 for the outside brackets, it's just like parentheses. We need to close this inside bracket as well. So now when I click this, it's going to hit exclamation point, the enter key, /whisper GM, bracket, 1T, bracket, 10-GP gemstones, and close all the brackets. So let's go ahead and test this. So when I click on this and click this, you'll notice, because remember what I mentioned before, when you surround it in the double closed brackets, it actually just gives me the textual output of it. It doesn't actually give me the whole complicated roll. Let me show you what I mean by that. If I instead said 1T close bracket and we do 10-GP-gemstones and close bracket, so this is the one way you could do it, you get, actually that didn't give me what I wanted at all there. So if you did this, it would be like rolling on this. But because I closed it in double brackets, what it's done is it's giving me the textual output, the final result. This is why I'm closing and end closing everything in double square brackets as I go through there. So basically, if I hit Save Changes, I can click this all day long. And you can see that every time I click it, I get a different gemstone. Doesn't seem very random. It seems like I'm getting a lot of tiger's eyes, malachites. But I do get this. Now here's a really cool tip. So if I go in here and I look at treasure hoards, Let's do a challenge 1 to 4. So this is where it gets really, really interesting. You can actually roll multiple times on this. Now, I haven't gone through and set all of this up. I don't know if I've actually done this at all. I just rolled a 94. So like my coins, I've gone through and I've automatically calculated this. This just opens this. I had this working. I'm not sure what I've done wrong here. But let me show you in text, in chat, what you could do. So you could write your super fancy macro with the exclamation point, ampersand, pound sign, 13, colon, and we don't have to do this here. We're going to enclose this in brackets. Now say I wanted to roll 2d6 times. Say this result resulted in me rolling 2d6 times. You could actually do 2d6 t. You always got to have the t to say how many times. And we could say the bracket 10-gp, not equals, dash gp dash gemstones. Close all the brackets. And that did not give me what I want. Oh, I know exactly what I needed to do. Do the brackets. Do the brackets again. 2d6. Close those brackets. Open a new bracket. So this can get really complicated. 10-gp-gemstones. This is case sensitive too, which is super annoying. It's not doing it. I don't know why I'm not getting it to roll 10 times on the... Let me try it one more time. 2d6 because I forgot the T, 10-gp-gemstones. So this is like programming. You need to debug this stuff all the time, and it didn't do it. So you can see in the text here, it actually gave me a whole bunch of results. It gave me hematite gemstone plus a blue quartz plus an azurite gemstone plus a turquoise gemstone. So it did it, but because of my closed brackets, I actually didn't get what I want. I am going to show you how to fix that with something I am using through that does require a pro subscription. Okay. So where are we? We've done this stuff. We've done this very simply. And again, you could just click on this a couple times right here and get exactly what you're looking for. Okay, so the next step is let's look at the magic table, which takes this a step further. Remember, this one rolls a D100. You've already seen how I do that. I type in ampersand, exclamation point, ampersand, pound sign, 13, semicolon, close bracket, 1T, close bracket. And then, of course, what you'll notice here is I have magic item table B. But that still is not answering this magic question. How are you getting it? Well, oh, this is a perfect example. Notice in this case, it not only, so here I rolled on that table a potion of resistance right here, 23 to 29. But it chose to give a potion of fire resistance. This is actually perfect that it rolled this. How did it know to roll a potion of fire resistance? Well, my potion of fire resistance has one of these tables in here as well. I only have one handout. I didn't create one for each of those, but I happen to have a table here that rolls D10s and damage types. Potion of poison resistance, potion of radiant resistance, potion of acid resistance. So we're going to show how we did this. The first thing I did, I mentioned early on in the video. I went through the process and I actually created handouts for all of these. Now, I will mention, if you don't want to create handouts for all of these, some of these you could actually go through and just link them to the compendium. I'll actually show how to do this. So we're going to go through and we're going to edit this. And so if you don't know, let's start here. Potion of Animal Friendship. I'm going to unlink this. So first of all, if you don't know how to link to handouts, first of all. So I have a Potion of Animal Friendship if I come over here. And I'm going to unlink this Potion of Hill Giant Strength too to show how I did this. So Potion of Animal Friendship, it is right here. So this exists as a handout that I've created inside of my journal. So I created a handout for this. It also, where did it go? It's back here. This also could potentially link to the compendium. I'm going to show you how to do both right here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you link this to this handout right here. Well, that's simple. You start with a square bracket on one end, the open side, and then the closed side, and you surround it. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the Potion of Hill Giant Strength. And then once you hit Save Changes, if it finds this name anywhere in your handouts, it's going to link it. Now you're probably really intuitive in noticing I don't have a Potion of Hill Giant Strength. And when I do this, you'll notice that Potion of Hill Giant Strength in fact was not linked, even though I only have one handout that represents all the Potions of Hill Giant Strength. So how did I do this? Well, actually, this is quite simple. It's a bit annoying. I just delete the word hill because I have a Potion of Giant Strength. I click Save, but now this isn't right. Well, guess what? You can go back and you can type in the word hill, because all we're doing is we're forcing Roll20 to go get the URL of this handout. That's all closing the brackets is doing. And in fact, later on, if you have a Potion of Stone Giant Strength, you can avoid that whole step by simply right-clicking and choosing Copy Link Address, and you could come in here, and then you could go in and you could do this the manual way. You could select all the text, insert the link, and all we really wanted, we wanted that journal entry. I don't know what this number is. I don't have, without going into Chrome's debugger, I have no way of getting that. But that does work, and you'll see here that if I close that and I click on this, it will open it up. So there's a couple different ways of getting to that. Now I want to show, what if you don't want to make all these handouts? Because trust me, it's a royal pain in the butt. Let's unlink this, and we're going to link it to the compendium entry. I'm going to open a new Chrome window here, and what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to search for D&D compendium Roll20. You'd probably only have to say D&D compendium. So we're looking for the roll20.net/compendium. We're looking for the Dungeons and Dragons compendium. And what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down and we're going to click on items. Not by type, not adventuring gear, not armor, none of that stuff. We're going to look for items. And I'm just trying to save you a whole bunch of time for something you'll find yourself doing. You could search for the individual. Let's show this because it's good to know. You could search for the item you want. Animal Friendship. We were looking for Potion of Animal Friendship. And you go, haha, I found it. Let's copy this link with a Control-C. And then you could come into here, and if this exists in the Roll20 compendium, it will open it in a window. And you'll notice that the hyperlink is different. It doesn't show up as purple as a clicked on hyperlink. This is actually a nice way for you to know if you do a combination of compendium and handouts, you can tell which are which. Here's the problem with what I just did by searching Potion of Animal Friendship. Notice the header of this window. It is Potion %20 of %20 Animal %20 Friendship. And this is because in HTML, spaces in the URLs are changed to %20. It looks absolutely horrible right there. I don't know of a way to change that formatting to make it look good here, but there is a way to fix this. Now you can do it the hard way, and that's search for every item, get the link, paste it, and then you could, when you edit the link, I didn't want to open, I wanted to edit the link. What you do is you scroll in here to where it says https://roll20.net compendium DND5e. Right here, after this, you type items, : and what this does, I just noticed, like looking at the links, that items worked when I searched for them a certain way. It changes the header that will appear here. And now when I click on this, what it does is it changes this to say items. That does not mean you can change that to say Potion of Animal Friendship. It doesn't mean you could change it to say Dingleberries. It does have to say items because this object, this link, is in the subcategory of items. So you do need to know the subcategory name. In fact, this works for a lot of different stuff. So actually spells, you'll notice I linked to a spell in one of these right here. So the Potion of Animal Friendship itself allows you to cast the Animal Friendship spell. And you'll notice that when I click on that, that shows up this way. Well, I did that in a very similar fashion. If I look at this link and I've lost the edit capability, this happens. So this is another thing. You'll be working along, and all of a sudden something doesn't work. And let's go to edit. Let's see if we can get that to work. Well, you can do it this way. You can select it all, and that's really weird. Let's just put Animal Friendship right here. We won't tell anybody. I'm going to copy that link address just to show you what I've done. So on the spells, so when you go to search for a spell, you could come into here and you could go to home and you could say spells and you could do by name and you could search in here. So that finds it this way. Actually, let's do it this way. Animal. Here's Animal Friendship. You could click on this. The important thing to note here is when I click on this, notice it's using the name. There's that name that we're getting from list, whatever. I don't know how HTML works. But if I do that right now and I paste this into here, oops, let's edit that. And I click on this link, you'll notice I get the animal %20 friendship, not what I wanted. So what I've literally done is on all of these, I went through, and because a spell can always be found under the subheading spells, I type spells, : insert, and now when I click on that, notice my header says spells. It doesn't say animal friendship, but it looks a lot better than what was there before. Okay, so I don't want that linked. So let's unlink this, save the changes. In this case, I do want this to be linked to my handout. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to return those closed brackets around it. When I click save, like magic, it returns to normal. So we've got a couple things here we need to show yet. How, when I roll, does this link to the, I get how you link to the items here, but how do you make it do in the chat like magic? So let's clear the current chat log, because remember, this is what we're trying to get to. Potion of Animal, look at that. Potion of Animal Friendship. If this is closed and I were to click on this, I click it, I open it, I say show to the players, and it's as easy as that. I never opened a book, I never rolled a dice, I never looked up a chart, I never went to go find the item in the compendium. I just shared the item with my players. That's all I had to do. So how do we get the magic links here? Bag of holding. Look, here's my bag of holding, and you can see here, it's very similar to a Heward's handy haversack or portable hole. Or actually, if they get near them, I think they destroy one another is what it is. I'm actually not a very good GM. I just like software. Okay. So how did we get to this point? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at, we know how we made the link, and you're going to say, hey, Jeremy, I bet you used a rollable table. And I go, I bet you're right. And in fact, when I look at this rollable table, what I've done is I've done something a little bit different. Now here I'm starting to get into the realm of, I think this is where it required me to use my pro account and an API that I'm using called Rollable Tables, made by the Aaron, who is the man. Because in fact, if I click on this rollable table, you can see what I got here is not at all what I want. So what's going on here? Well, I'm going to give you I'm going to show you how the sausage is made here. So I am using an API called Rollable Tables, and I'll share this with you in a little bit, where you put this in and do all this. It has some really cool capability. It can understand this formatting where if you enclose something in brackets and then you get the hyperlink for it, you can go here. I'll do this with Potion of Healing. I'll show you how I did this. And this is a perfect example because this one's got a different weight. So basically what I've done on all this, I'm going to delete this and show you that it still works. I copied my text, my Potion of Greater Healing. I did a open square bracket, pasted the name. Now look at that. I must have captured the beginning. If you're wondering how I'm doing this, the control key jumps from word to word. Control shift highlights whole words. That's a tip. Makes this whole process go faster. Close bracket. And then for the formatting purposes, we need an open parenthesis. And now we enter the hyperlink. Well, you can get this because we've already linked it here by right-clicking and choosing Copy Link Address. Then I'm going to paste and close my parentheses. Now this chart brings up an interesting point that goes back to something we talked about earlier. Remember when we talked about the weight being the weight specifying the probability that that item will be rolled. So this is a D100 where many items on this chart only have one number. However, the Potion of Greater Healing can be rolled on a roll of 1 through 15. There are 15 chances on a D100 that it would be rolled. So that's why it gets a weight of 15. Let's save those changes. Let's pull the rollable table back up. Where Mithril Armor 93, why I picked something in the middle, I don't know. Right here only has a weight of 1 because there's only one possible number I could roll. You'll notice I don't care about the actual number. All I care about is its weight and its probability of being rolled. Because out of 100, there's 1 in 100 chance of this being rolled. There are 15 in 100 chances of this being rolled. So at this point, you might be going, well, Jeremy, I remembered you rolled a Potion of Fire Resistance, but I can see in your chart it says Potion of Resistance. So this is where we get really tricky, and this does require the API that I'm going to show you in a little bit. I'm going to show it here because that window I opened doesn't work very well. So let's remember back to the rollable tables because you've probably already guessed I am doing a slash. I'm not even going to remember the characters. Exclamation point, ampersand, pound sign, 13, semicolon, open bracket, 1T, open bracket, and then the name of this, magic-item table-B, close all the brackets. And that rolls on this rollable table. So it rolls in here. And then let's say it rolls a Potion of Resistance. Well, what I'm doing, because I'm using an API, so this does require the API, a pro account, and it requires the app Rollable Tables to make this work. Rollable Tables allows you to do nested rollable tables. So it rolls here, comes into here, and it says Potion of, and there's that same phrase we just used. That's telling it to go again and roll on another rollable table called Resistance. And all this rollable table is doing is it has the 10 resistances. Acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, necrotic, poison, psychic, radiant, and thunder. So when it outputs that name, the hyperlink I gave it for Potion of Resistance is still just for this. So if you don't have the API and you don't have a pro account, you could tell it, roll the dice, you could click on the Potion of Resistance, and then you could just click on this, and you could roll a D10 again. So you can get pretty much here. I really wanted to automate this whole process, and I thought it's pretty sweet when I roll on this, and I eventually get... I'm never going to roll it now that I want to. Absolutely not. Oh, there we go. Potion of Thunder Resistance. Now notice if this is closed, me clicking on this link, because it has this hyperlink, and again, it's formatted. Open bracket, square bracket, Potion of. So I did Potion of. I roll on another table called Resistance, and it gets a name. And then I use the word resistance. That's how I make it say Potion of Thunder Resistance. And then it hyperlinks to this handout right here. Notice Potion of Resistance doesn't look like something that is on in the compendium. I didn't link it, which would tell me that it's probably not there. Or no, you know what it is? The compendium has an item for each one of those. So look what I've done here. Here's the potion of acid resistance. Here's the potion of cold resistance. Each one of these were linked individually to do this. So keep that in mind. Again, I don't really use the compendium a whole lot now that I have handouts to do all of this. Okay, so I think we've covered everything. We've gone through, we've talked about nested rollable tables, the formatting here. I could try shutting off the API, but I'm pretty sure you can't get the magic hyperlinking without the API. So you could always do it the way we talked about at the very beginning with my 10 GP gemstones, and you could do something as simple as this. You could always do that. I'm pretty sure if you want a hyperlink, you have to have this API, but prove me wrong. I could turn it off. In fact, let's go look at it and let's see what happens. So if you are a pro subscriber, first of all, you probably already know where this is. We are going to exit the game, and we are going to go to our game, and we're going to go to Settings, API Scripts, and you'll notice, it's not called Rollable Tables, it's called Recursive Tables. And again, I got this from the Aaron, the Arcane Scriptomancer. I call him the man. This is super useful. I had to search for this on GitHub. I think he provided a link. If I find it, I'll share it. I'll put it in the comments. That's right. That's what everybody always says in these videos. I'll put it in the comments. This is what makes some of the magic happen. So you need to have this enabled. This is not available from the script library. You will not go through here and find this unless he's since added it. I've said he should add this to the Git. So what you would do is you would go out to GitHub. You'd Control A to select all, Control C to copy it. You'd say a new script. You'd call this whatever you want, and you'd go Control V to paste it, and that's how you'd get there. I don't want two of those, so let's just go ahead and not do that. He's also responsible for token mod, which is a super awesome thing. He helped me write this token summary thing, which is super cool. My GM notes, which is super cool. He's the man. Anyway, okay, so we're going to do this. We are going to temporarily turn recursive tables off. I'm going to disable this script, and you'll see here that it's restarting my game. I don't think the hyperlinks work without recursive tables, so let's find out. Because I could be wrong. Now, what you won't get is you won't get the table within a table, rollable tables. So, okay, so we're back in our game. Let's go to magic item table B, because that has a lot of those like of resistance items, my treasure tables. And I'm going to delete this because I don't need this anymore. And let's go to, man, this is so slow when it first loads. I have the Storm King's Thunder campaign, so it's got a ton of assets to it. So let's see if I broke my game. Let's do this. And you can see it doesn't work. And I can actually tell you why it doesn't work. And this brings up a good point. That let's try to make it work. So I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say magic item. I'm going to add this again, and I'm going to try recreating the link because I never showed you how to link using rollable tables. So let's go in here. Let's insert a link. We are going to do exclamation point, ampersand, pound sign, 13, semicolon, whisper GM. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do double open square brackets, one time, open square brackets, and that is magic dash item dash table dash B. Horrible naming I used. And it's easy to rename. Insert. So let's see what we get. Let's see if this one works. Okay, so I can tell you right now that the rollable tables, in fact, require, in order to get the hyperlink, that is because of the recursive tables mod. So you can see right here, this was working before, and now when I click on it, what I get is the word in brackets and then the word in parentheses with the hyperlink on it, and I actually can't really do anything with that. Well, I could do this. Does this work? So I could do something like that, and in which case you'd just be like, why did you even bother putting that in parentheses? So anyway, so let's take a look at recursive tables, and let's take a look at how that works. So I'm going to go turn it back on. So I'm going to exit my game. I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to go to my API scripts, and I'm going to go to recursive tables, and I'm going to enable that. It'll re-spool up my sandbox. I can go back into my game, launch it. It'll populate my chat with a whole bunch of stuff I'm really not interested in. So I'm at 45 minutes. This is getting really long in the teeth. So I'm going to be wrapping this up here really quick. Let's clear my current chat log. I just do that so everything's not at the bottom. This video brought to you by Pepsi. There we go. Slowly but surely we will come back online. Okay, so magic item table B. And so now when I click this, so here's the thing you'll notice. If I click on this now, just turning the mod on didn't make it all magically work. So you'll notice this still doesn't work. But this one here, that does. Oh, look at there, a potion of cold resistance. Oh, I've seen this before. Okay, so let's take a look at how we do this. I am going to unlink this, and we're going to add it from scratch right here. Actually, let's just do it to this one. Unlink. Because you're probably going, I want to know how you did that magic embedded table. Well, that magic is thanks to the Aaron. We're going to insert a link, and it's very similar to before. Exclamation point, ampersand, hashtag 13 semicolon, whisper the GM, and double open square brackets. And I already made a mistake. So forget everything I just said. Let's go back to the semicolon. To use rollable tables requires a special command thing. It's an exclamation RT. So every mod you'll find has commands to use them require an exclamation point and then whatever commands they're listening for. Rollable tables is listening for the command exclamation point RT. All that says is whatever I type next, send this to that mod. So it's going to send it because rollable tables is listening for RT. And when it hears it, it's going to say, I'll take over. And now we do what we were typing, slash. And notice I don't put any spaces in here. I go right into the slash whisper GM, bracket, bracket, open bracket, bracket, 1T, bracket. And now we are going to go magic dash item dash table dash B. You can actually see it's still in there. 1, 2, 3. I close all the brackets. I hit insert. We're relinked. Let's save the changes and let's see if I didn't break it. And there it is, potion of greater healing. And then I come in here and I can just roll. Maybe I need to use it right away. So that's how that did that. Now here's the thing. What happens is all this text gets parsed. Let's see if we can't get a resistance to come up. This is super exciting. Potion of lightning resistance. If I scroll up, actually I totally lied. All it sees right here is the whisper GM roll one time on magic item table B. So it rolls on magic item table B, which again we looked at down here. There it is. And it hit on potion of resistance right here. So all this is getting fed into that Rollable Tables add-on. And when the Rollable Tables add-on got fed the bracket one time on item table B, it read all the text, and it read the text that came out of the rollable table. And it has the formatting to create the hyperlink. It also has the format to go in when it sees the brackets again and go, hey, he wants me to roll again. And I could have, say in that table, I also had small, medium, and large potions of resistance. I could have it go potion of, and then it could roll large resistance potion or lightning resistance. So you kind of get the idea. It opens up a lot of possibilities. It's really cool how the rollable tables works. I'm literally using the Pro subscription. It's worth the $5 a month for stuff like this. The Aaron's macro tool, which is super cool. So I'm going to give another plug out to him. The Aaron is the man. Excuse me. Let's go to our NPCs that come with Storm King's Thunder. And I'm going to bring a Bugbear out. And bugbears, by default, if you were to look at them, have 27 health on average. Well, you know what? If my group fought, I did not mean to click that, 3 different bugbears, that'd be really boring once you figured out it had 27 health. So what I have is using his other awesome tool called Token Mod. I have a macro that I run here that randomizes the health. It also sets this last column to give me the passive perception of the NPC, because that's the value I want to have there. And it also does something else. It's unlinking all this stuff so that I don't accidentally botch up the original table here. So notice this guy's got 34, this guy's got 35, and this guy's got 26. Quite a disparity. Well, what I'm actually doing here, and this is my players agreed on this is how they wanted to do this, is I have a macro that is a token action. We actually feed his other mod some values, and what I have one here is the NPC formula. Well, guess what? I roll it twice, and I keep the highest. So it's almost like rolling for advantage on their health. I roll for their average health twice, and I take the highest value. That's how my players do their health. So a fighter, for example, basically rolls advantage on his 1d10. Other things I do with this are pretty awesome. You'll notice down at the bottom, there is another mod. I don't know who makes this one. It's this group initiative. I just click all these guys and hit initiative, and look, I must have had this guy already on here. It rolls all their initiative and sorts it for me. I don't have to go through, add each one of them, roll each of their initiatives, because you know what? At the end of the day, I want all these guys to fight, and I don't want them all to go at once. I'm using a digital tool. Let's make it more immersive. So after Heffer goes, a bugbear goes. Then Brian goes, then Edmund, then the other 2 bugbears go. So gotta say, Pro subscription's totally worth it for a handful of things. They've made our games much more interesting. It's $10 a month. I waste $10 in a month on much worse stuff than this game. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. Sorry about plugging the API and the Pro subscription at the end. I think it's super cool. You do need it if you want to get the magical hyperlinks out of these tables. So if you want to do this kind of really cool stuff right here, where you can just click on this and go to that table. But I basically showed you how you can link to these things, how you can make rolls in line. So again, all these, just so you know, I've made decisions on when these make sense, right? So in my case, I had a potion of healing somewhere in here. It pops up all the time. Potion of greater healing. This is a group roll. This is something the players are going to roll, so that's why those get broadcast to everybody. Where when I roll something like the potion of lightning resistance, I roll on this table, they don't need to know that I'm randomly... Actually, that one did roll a 4, so I need to change that one. But notice the damage type right there. I don't need them knowing that I rolled that. They could think that was a... They don't care. Again, all they want to know is how the sausage tastes, not how it was made. Anyway, that's it for this extremely long video. Have a good one, and maybe I'll keep making more of these.